John is not.
Okay.
Boston, yes. Boston. Oh,
John McNamee.
these schools. We're good.
I'm going to start. If Sue does join, she's more than welcome.
Oh, we're not live yet, are we?
But no, I want to thank everybody for joining. Okay. Then let me call to order the Thursday, June 20th school committee special meeting. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is over Jennifer's shoulder. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. We could just take a moment for reflection. And thank you all. Item 2, we are going to be discussing change orders to the solar project. And I will turn it over to Dr. Mitchell at this point because she has all the information. And I do know that there is a Newport Renewables representative here, Stuart Flanagan, that will be commenting. But tonight's meeting's purpose is to discuss the change orders, discuss them with Mr. McNamee, and vote on if we'll be moving forward with these change orders. So Dr. Mitchell, take it away.
Sure, we all want to be good stewards of this beautiful facility, and that's why we're here. Stu he's the principal at Newport Renewables, which means he's part owner. And he has done his due diligence, his organization from the get-go. And the roofers that most recently were sent here on site, they feel that that 1,400 linear feet of overseaming on EPDM roof, the membrane, the flat roof, is the way to go before we put any solar panels up there. And so that is the first one. And so that is, it will be, focused on shoring up all the seams on that membrane roof. And then also mechanical attachments. There was maybe a 24-hour period where we believed that we wouldn't need them. And then the engineer got back to us and said, likely that would be the best way forward. So aside from being the point of contact and being super interested, engaged, and, a staunch advocate for this project, I'm out of my depth when it comes to, structural engineering, and certainly not out of my depth when it comes to membrane roofs. It's like as a principal, we had one, and so it always needed servicing in some way, shape, or form. But this roof is in good shape. It was installed the last renovation, and that said, we definitely want to check all the boxes before we start any installation process. So, Stu, would you like to give an overview of these change orders, how they came to be, what your engineer said as opposed to maybe last fall, I think when the roof was looked at, et cetera?
Thanks everybody for your time. I'm Stuart Flanagan, principal of Newport Renewables. Looking a certain way, or
We can look at them.
Oh, you can look at us. The camera.
You can put up the schematics, maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
yes, so as Lori summarized, 2 different change orders we'll be discussing tonight. The first is for the overseaming or the reseaming of all the membrane roof seams that will have solar arrays installed. So that would be the roof over the oldest part of the school, the membrane roof to the very north section of the side of the building, and then the roof. So this roof is about 10 years old. It's a Carlisle EPDM roof, name brand manufacturer. With EPDM, the failure point is typically the seams. So the roofer, we had multiple roofers come look at the roof. They all agree it's in great condition, but just to be prudent and give some added life expectancy to the roof, they suggested overseaming, so basically putting a cover strip of new material over the seams just to add additional life onto the roof system. This is something that is pretty common with a roof that's been installed for a few years, a number of years. We actually did this on our own building, on our office. Our roof was about 10 years old. We've reseamed and then put a solar array over the top for the added security. So it's a pretty straightforward process. The alternative would be, of course, not doing this and then just relying on the existing seams, or of course, replacing the roof altogether, which would be about 10 years premature. So in our opinion, in our roofer's opinion, this is the most cost-effective and prudent way forward, aside from this complete replacement, which we'd be talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. Any questions before I speak to the second change order?
Yes.
Go ahead, Michael.
So you're referencing the seams, but when these brackets get attached and go through the rubber, I mean, what's the guarantee with that as far as you're pinpointing the seams per se, but how about all the contact points that, where all these different penetration spots are being made?
Sure, it's a good question. So the only roof, two roofs that are getting attachments, the system is primarily ballasted. So it's basically weighted down with concrete blocks that are rated for the freeze thaw environment we have here in this climate. The attachments are needed on the roof over the oldest part of the school because of the height of that roof, pitch, and the wind loading. And there's 3 required on the roof at the very north end of that structure. So everywhere else, it's just a ballasted system without penetrations. Throughout the whole system, there'll be sacrificial EPDM slip sheets. So slip sheets made out of the same material as the roof. They get put down under the entire racking system. And then anywhere where we have the mechanical attachments, which is change order 2, which I'll describe in a minute, those are installed by the roofer as well. Those are made out of Carlisle EPDM material, and they're rated to be weather tight for the life of the roof system. So it's basically a metal disc that gets installed, and it has the Carlisle material that comes with it that gets installed on top, just like they would be if they're installing a patch, essentially. But it's the plate is probably about 4 or 5 inches in diameter, and then the patch that goes on top is probably about a foot, maybe 16 inches, 14 inches, I should say. So those will be installed again just on the roof over the oldest part of the school and the very north end of that same wing of the school. But those will be installed by the roofer as well.
So what you're saying is that, and correct me if I'm wrong in understanding that you're referencing a ballast system where basically it's just free floating up there and it's just being held down by cinder blocks?
Correct.
And what is our warranty as far as if we were to get a hurricane that comes through here?
So it's all stamped by engineers. It's rated for the wind speeds that I think it's 144 miles an hour, exposure category C, which is based on all the kind of open space around the school. And it's also the importance factor of the building, or the risk category of the building is also included, that being a school with a lot of children, personnel, and the school building. So both the building structure's capacity to withstand the dead loads of the array and the uplift imposed by these attachments and the wind forces are being signed off on by one engineer, Northeast Engineers, and then the actual capability of the racking system to withstand those wind loads for this specific location are being signed off by another engineer, Larson Engineering. So there's 2 engineers that sign off on this, and I'd say it's very common for systems to just be primarily ballasted without any attachments. But in this case, they were required because of that exposure category of the open fields, the pitch of the roof, and also just the wind speed.
I'm sure I'll have more questions, but go right ahead.
Any others? All right, you can tell us about the other change order.
So change order 2 is for the mechanical attachments I just spoke about. Now, those are, it's always in our agreement that we don't know how many of those are going to be required at the outset because it's determined during the engineering process. So the first step is having the structural engineer evaluate the different roof structures. Luckily, all of the roof structures can withstand the loads imposed, both dead loads and uplift imposed by the different solar arrays on all these different, I think there's 6 different roof structures we're installing on. So that's the first step. And then from there, if there were any load limits both dead loads or uplift. We take that information and we share that with the racking company, who puts together the final calculations for the ballast and attachment plan. So once we provided them, said there's no load limits, then they go and evaluate the location, again, the wind speed, exposure, risk category of the building, and that's when the quantity and location of the attachments is determined. So this, sorry to cut you off, but this change order includes, there's 3 components, basically. There's material, additional material that has to get purchased and installed, both the roof attachments themselves and the actual hardware that attaches them to the racking system, to hold the racking system down. And then there's electrical labor, because everything racking up is considered electrical work, so our electricians will be doing that. And then we also have the cost for the roofing subcontractor to install that. Does reflect the entries for total changes.
Okay, so following this, this implementation, there's a second implementation you're saying, in terms of we'll know?
We've gone through both of those steps.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're not going to be sitting in this room again saying, okay.
What Lori referenced earlier, we had we wanted to double check the engineer basically on the attachments, of course, because it's an additional cost. So we inquired about the exposure category, because the first structural engineer that evaluates the building considered to be exposure B, which means basically there's scattered obstructions 30, 35 feet or less. But Panel Claw, the racking company, and their engineer, they took the more conservative approach, at least for the racking system, not necessarily the building structure analysis. And they took the more conservative approach of the exposure C due to all the open fields in the area. So we think it's best, they certainly think it's best to go with the exposure C and have the attachments just for the added security. Basically not, we don't want to be cutting it close with anything, especially at school.
Correct. I have a question for Mr. McNamee. This roll-in and these change orders, are we still subject to our RIDE percentage credit and federal tax credits, or is this going to be just dollar for dollar?
No, we're going to get the ride reimbursement. I'm assuming it does qualify for the 30%, which is that
Correct.
ITC credit. The other thing that a ride does when they do review the plans is that because they are making a significant contribution, they also review them to make sure that they meet their requirements under the construction regulations that they have too. So there's another set of eyes at the top of that as well too. So.
Correct. And Lori, you had, I believe, mentioned that Studio Jade is also aware of these.
Yep, I looped in Phil. I sent him the change orders. We had a conference call with him. He thinks this is a prudent way to move forward. The roof is 10 years old. I think it's warranted for 20. Generally, they go for 25. I don't think there are many existing school buildings putting up solar arrays at the same time they're putting up a new roof, and so it's pretty common to shore things up. I have to say that it seems like every other month we have engineers up here and really cross-checking and from different entities. So it does have Phil's endorsement.
Go ahead, Michael.
You're familiar with the roof that's on there now. You spoke about that a little bit. So how does this affect the existing warranty?
So we'll have Carlisle do an inspection at the end of the project to ensure that the warranty continues. We're going to follow Carlisle's requirements, which is using the Carlisle material for the mechanical attachments, and using those sacrificial slip sheets under anything that will contact the roof. So it's a pretty standard process for us. Just follow their requirements, have the inspection at the end. If they identify anything that we need to correct, we'll correct it. But it's pretty typical warranty continuation process. So
will the school receive something back saying that the work done complies to their standards and that the warranty is still full force effect?
Yes.
And we would be notified, like you're saying, you were going to follow what the expectations are. They're going to do an inspection. Should something not jive, you would then make amendments to it, and or we would be informed that there's a flaw in the, you know.
Yes, and the owner, in this case, just a representative of the school, has to sign off on the paperwork. So it's a part of the process that the school has to be involved in. It's not like we just take care of it, it's our word. There's actual paperwork that goes along with all this to satisfy the warranty requirements.
Excellent. Mr. McNamee, I do have another question for you. So I'm seeing two numbers. Is it going to be the total? I see one change order and it takes the 513, adds to the total. And then I see another one, it takes the 513 and adds to the total. Do we have, so lumped in, we're going to be around 559, I'm thinking, or 560? With the two change orders, just rough math, I'm not calculating.
Yeah, about 560. Yeah.
Okay.
The change orders are shown that way because one can get approved or not the other, so it is the sum of both.
Fair. All right, do we have any other questions for Stuart?
I do. So the original work that was originally proposed, that there was potential panels above the gymnasium area in that, on that south side,
Correct.
and they're no longer in the plan, if I understand that correctly?
No, there's still, the plan was approved as proposed
Okay.
at planning and zoning.
Because I didn't see anything on this. It doesn't show, maybe I'm looking at this incorrectly, but I don't see any panels above the gymnasium.
Yeah, there's still modules on the south side of the gymnasium roof, just as we originally proposed. Nothing was relocated. There was discussion about that in the meeting, but there was no requirement to relocate it. Some modules were moved from,
To the back.
yeah, to the low slope north facing roof on the northwest side of the building. Based on, there was more modules on this roof and also on the roof to the east. Because we were told at some point that there was going to be mechanical equipment removed to make space. And that came to light that was not the case. All the equipment up there was staying.
Right.
So those are the only modules that got relocated, but not from the south facing roof of the gymnasium.
So by moving these panels from the south to the north side, how is that going to affect the performance that was originally planned for this project?
Performance will decrease for that array by about 10%. The alternative was eliminating them completely and losing the result of, the outstanding 90%. So the idea was to keep the capacity, still get something rather than nothing for those modules.
What does that, in layman's terms, what are we looking at? I mean, like, what's that 10% going to mean to us at the end of the day?
I don't have the numbers with me tonight, but I can certainly prepare and show the analysis for what the delta is on moving those modules to that north facing roof. But I don't have that prepared with me tonight.
And then as he shared, he was under the impression, or the original plan was under the impression that mechanical equipment would be moved. And I would imagine that was just not feasibly cost-wise and functionality-wise.
We were told during the RFP that all the mechanical equipment was being removed to make way for new heat pump systems. And then we got through the engineering process, checked with Lori, she said, absolutely not. That's maybe 5 years down the road. So the RFP was just misleading.
That was the RFP that the town floated when everyone was sort of folded in. If I may, Chair, I think some of those arrays, so it's just that one array that you'll lose 10% of that output. And wasn't that moved for aesthetics? Because
no, it was considered, or the council was
the
asking
butters
about
were there.
taking them from the north side, south side of the gym, putting them on the north side.
Correct.
But this was after that. This was a result of the equipment that we thought was moving staying. So it was modules over basically the flat roofs, all the flat roofs that had to be relocated.
I recall zoning having a quite robust conversation regarding
Aesthetics.
the aesthetics of it, which was silenced by, does anyone know what color the roof is right now? And no one knew, so they moved forward with aesthetics being not a top priority. Any,
That the butters were very supportive. of.
yes. Any other questions for Stuart and or John McNamee or Dr. Mitchell? Excellent. Stuart, thank you so much. I got to tell you, while I'm somewhat familiar, you were incredibly thorough in terms of your presentation and talking about how things operate and what the expectations are and how to, what the outcomes look like. So I do appreciate you taking the time. And I know we've probably all been in rooms like this where, don't get me wrong, if you got to go back and be more thorough, I understand that, but you really do come prepared. And I know I can say, I think this committee appreciates that. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
And thank you for your time.
Here, I'm the owner of the company. I'm going to be here for the life of the system. So the last thing I want to do is mislead anyone.
Yes. Excellent.
I do have, is that, I'm sorry, is that system, these are panels are gonna be flat on the roof or they will be tilted up?
On all the asphalt shingle roofs, they'll be flush mounted. So they'll be mounted at the same tilt as the roof. On all the ballasted roofs, all the membrane roofs, they'll be at a 10-degree tilt.
And those will be to the rear of the building? I'm sorry, and this, I can't tell by this diagram. Which
So the roof over us is a membrane roof, and then the roof over the oldest part of the building to our east here, and then the roof directly to the north, but all the way to the north. So it's kind of behind, there's a little courtyard, another membrane roof, and then one just a little bit lower. So it's that lower roof on the north side of that east wing of the building.
You mentioned the old roof. What, has it been determined on how old that is and where do we stand with that as far as the life expectancy of that?
Yeah, I'm referring to the age of the building, not the roof. So our understanding is all the membrane roofs are the same age.
Okay.
Done during the renovation, right?
So approximately 10 years.
I guess I would have a question for John, then, as far as if this is good for the 35%.
Well, we're gonna get the 30%. The state obviously is a flat 75,000, so, but we're gonna get 30% on the feds, and then we're gonna get another, because you have to back out the reimbursements from federal and state from the total, and then we get the 35% of that number as well, so.
All right, as long as we do that.
So you're looking at a difference of approximately, what, 40,000, 50, 45,000? A little bit more than that, right? Between these two change orders?
Well, no, we're gonna get 30 plus we'll get 65% back, so it's about a third or whatever that is gonna be our cost, about 20 grand.
So our cost would be 20 grand. So we've had discussions in the past that they only distribute money 2 times a year. Right, so how is that gonna work as far as for the housing aid? On this particular thing, and how do we cover that in the meantime?
So the housing aid, well, we have the cash flow there now. So we have the cash flow to do this. We'll be getting housing aid from the auditorium work, also the art room. But we also have what they call pay-go money. So when they issue the bonds, that allows us to draw against that. And basically what that does, it gets us our housing aid ahead of time. So we could use that money. I haven't figured that in at this point in time, but we could use that money. So it's not going to be an issue from a cash flow standpoint.
Yeah, I guess that's my question, is that we're not gonna create a cash flow issue by doing this and waiting for reimbursement.
Correct.
That was the reason that the state went with that pay-go money, because there were a lot of districts that needed to get that money. I know East Providence, when they were doing their high school, took big advantage of that pay-go site. And you get a certain percentage of your approved project. So in our case, where we submitted, it was the $4 million, we get a certain percentage of that approval when the bonds were sold. So we have a pretty good chunk of pay-go money that we have available, certainly enough to cover this. And of course, we're getting 185 from the town, so we'll be able to get that money as soon as the project starts. So the 30%, I think, has to wait until we, I don't know if we have to file a return for that. Is that
For
an
the direct
ITC?
pay tax credit, it's definitely after the project is completed and operational.
Right. And I think the state probably is completion of the
The
project.
state is the same, yeah, the renewable energy fund grant of 75,000. Once the project's complete and operational, then they have a third-party inspection completed. And upon passing that, it's when the grant is dispersed.
So more than likely what I'll do is look at utilizing the housing aid to kind of offset any needs in terms of cash flow.
Okay.
I mean, the pay-go money, excuse me.
And this system would be up and running and tied in by when?
The goal will be September based on when we're able to start. So this is we're hoping on starting in the next couple of weeks.
So you have everything, all the materials, there's nothing holding back, so you're just waiting on us, is that the?
Basically, this and then getting the roofer scheduled for any of the flat roofs. We could start on the pitch roofs right away. Roofing work done, obviously, we're starting on the flat roofs.
Okay.
Excellent. Any other questions? Stuart, thank you again. Excellent. I will consider a vote to approve the change orders presented here tonight. Do we need to do them individually or do we need to?
It says both.
It says both.
It says both.
Just want to make sure we're playing above board. Yep, good. We can do both.
I move to vote to approve change orders related to the solar project.
Second.
All right, we will vote via roll call, Jennifer.
Travis Audi,
Aye.
Hannah Aya,
Aye.
Megan Gonzalez,
Aye.
Susan Kinane,
Aye.
Mike Rocha.
All right,
All right, the motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Stuart, again, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
It travels back.
Thank you. Almost bath time tonight. All right, I'm gonna.
Thank you.
Bye.
Well, with no other business in front of this committee, I will ask for do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all for making the time tonight. I know it was not, hey, well, we have to respond as Stuart shared. He's waiting for this body to move, and thank you for your thoroughness, Lori.
come on.